Hey, it's Flippin' MJ here. Welcome to the June 15th edition of Up to Date MMA. All right, a few news items here. We've got Bibiano Fernandes. Apparently, the current featherweight champion over at Dream, he's now pulled out of his UFC 149 fight. Dana White not too happy about it. Apparently, Bibiano wants to still kind of shop around, and apparently all they had was a verbal contract, so nothing in writing. Paul Daly asked for his release from his Strikeforce contract, so good luck to Paul Daly. I don't know where Semtex goes from here, but good luck to him. Ultimate Fighter format's going to be changing. They're still going to air the fights on Friday, but it's not going to be live any longer, so that'll be interesting. And then we've got confirmation of JDS versus Cain Velasquez 2, and that's coming up at UFC 152. All right, so big news here. Carl Parisian making a statement saying, "I will make a comeback." He's fighting John Gunderson this upcoming weekend here, actually just tomorrow. Carl also said he can't run. He's got a bum leg. He has a hard time getting his leg up off the ground. He's got a knot the size of a cue ball, he said, in the back of his hamstring. I don't know, man. Both Flip and I are, we work with athletes. We do massage therapy. Flip does training. What do you think about that, Flip? I mean, do you think he's really going to be able to make a run and really get healthy and be a contender like he used to be?
Well, I can't say necessarily make a big comeback starting right away if he has that sort of injury that's plaguing him, that's stopping him from being able to exercise the way that he's supposed to. Especially considering that John Gunderson has been around for a long time. He's a veteran.
Yeah.
He's fought a couple times in the UFC, and I've had the privilege of seeing him fight in a Ring of Fire in Colorado, and he's just awesome. He works hard. I think if Carl's going to make a comeback and having this injury, John Gunderson isn't the guy that he's going to do it against.
Yeah.
The other thing is that he just has a lot of anxiety issues. And you take it in that mental state that he's usually in.
Yeah.
I honestly don't see it. I mean, it's always possible he has all the talent in the world, but it's just however he utilizes it and works out in training.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for me, just knowing that he's got that bum of a hamstring, and having worked on athletes that have issues like that, I don't know if he's just not seeing the right doctor or if he's not seeing the right therapist. He needs to go see like a physical therapist, somebody that can get in there and really diagnose what the issue is, because if he's not able to work that out, there's no way that, in my book, that he's going to be able to really train to his full, potential. Interesting news, UFC 154, we had our last edition, we had Campman going back and forth, wanting his shot at Condit, and Condit, reciprocating, and then, Campman having surgery. And then you had Johnny Hendricks calling out Condit, and now apparently at 154 you're going to have Campman, fighting Johnny Hendricks, and then on the same card we've got GSP, now fighting Condit. So in my book, I'm kind of looking at it thinking, well, the UFC's kind of making a hedge bet here. I think if GSP ends up not being able to make that fight, it'll be interesting to see who they slot in, because obviously they're either going to pull Campman or pull Johnny Hendricks to now fight Condit. Which way do you think that would go? And
honestly, I think that they would probably keep Condit open on that. They probably won't have somebody slot right against him. They could probably come up with something that's going to be a different headliner. They've been doing it all summer. I mean, they have the injury bug going on. So, unless Condit, makes a statement saying exactly who it is that he wants to fight on that card, and they, the fans are getting a little antsy. So are the other people in the news media that want to see him fight for that title already.
Right.
I think that people don't really care who it is as long as he defends the interim belt. But I honestly, if it goes the way that it's supposed to with all four fights, I honestly see like Campman and Condit fighting. I think GSP, just with the injuries and the layoff, it's going to be a little hard for him to come back. And I think Condit has what it takes to get out from underneath GSP and take it to the feet. As far as Campman, he's great against strong wrestlers, and I see him basically doing the same thing that he did to to Rick Story and Jake Allenberg in this last fight. So
yeah, definitely. I see it the same way. I think that, for Campman, it's a really good matchup for him against Johnny Hendricks. And the cool thing is, no matter how GSP versus Condit goes, Campman will probably be able to win against, Johnny Hendricks. And then from there, if GSP has to pull out of that fight, I see that Condit's going to push to get that Campman fight versus the Hendricks fight anyways. And then either way, we'll probably see him matched up. Okay, probably long overdue. We got Tito Ortiz going to finally be, put in the UFC Hall of Fame ahead of his rematch or rubber match with Forrest Griffin at UFC 148. It's kind of a trip, like Tito Ortiz, as much as he's done for the sport, as much as he's done for the UFC, to see him finally get in there is a nice thing. I mean, you feel like long overdue?
Yeah, I think that he should have actually gone into the the Hall of Fame right around the same time that Chuck Liddell did. You know, granted, the timing usually seems to be that when a person's about to retire, they'll drop him into the Hall of Fame. And it's perfect. He started his career with the UFC. He's coming on to a rubber match, you know, UFC Fan Expo, and it's usually one of the biggest cards, the 4th of July cards. So, you know, he's going to have a lot going on, you know, that weekend. Yeah. But, you know, best of luck to Tito Ortiz, and, you know, I'm sure that he's going to be fine as far as, you know, going in. He's a great coach, as everybody saw in The Ultimate Fighter 3. Yeah. You know, he has a lot of things going for him just business-wise. So, you know, it's probably about the right time for him to bow out and take that Hall of Fame status.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, how do you think about the rubber match, you know, with Forrest Griffin? Forrest Griffin said if he loses to Tito Ortiz this time, he's going to quit life. So I thought that was an interesting statement. I'm hoping that both of these guys come in, you know, 100% healthy and ready. How do you think the fight's going to go down?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty close one again. Forrest is, you know, he fights the way that he fights. He goes in, he brawls, you know, and he usually does pretty well. For some reason, when he fights Tito Ortiz, it's a little bit different. You know, Forrest usually takes a lot of damage on the ground, and I think that Forrest just holds him. I mean, Tito holds Forrest down, you know, a lot better. I think that Forrest is going to pull it out this time. Yeah. You know, I've seen him kind of doing his training and stuff recently, and he was looking pretty good. You know, and staying on top of it. So it really just depends. You know, Tito Ortiz always brings it, but I really think that Forrest, just because he's a little bit younger and he has a little more hunger there. Yeah. He's gonna win that fight. Yeah,
I agree. I think Forrest has got more on the line, you know, because Tito, I think he's gonna come in and give it 100%, and he's gonna go in to try and finish him this time. You know, they put on 2 really great fights in the past, but you know, Forrest has more riding on this. Forrest isn't even close, I think, to like calling it quits. As far as I can tell, you know, he's in the gym every day, and you know, both of us have seen him. So. Yeah, I think there's more on the line. I think Forrest pushes the pace and will probably come away with the victory as well. Okay, lastly here, coming up next weekend, we've got the UFC on FX4. We've got Maynard versus Guida. That's an interesting matchup. This is kind of our last thing we're going to talk about in this edition of Up to Date MMA. How do you see this matchup, man? I'm really pulling. I'm a fan of both of these guys, but I really want to see Gray Maynard pull this one out. I think he's a little bit stronger wrestler, and I think he might be able to nullify kind of that pace that Guida has, but. It's a toss-up. It's hard to call on this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an issue of size. You know, Gray usually comes in pretty big after he weighs in, and he's really strong. I mean, and he's strong enough to stop Guida's pace. But then again, I mean, you know, Gray's been in there. He's done the 5-round wars. You know, he had the 2 fights with Frankie Edgar, and I think that, you know, he's probably a little bit hungry to get back in there and do some damage. Guida, he works pretty hard. Yeah. He keeps a frenetic pace, and a lot of guys can't keep up. I think the thing is, though, is that you know, Gray will be able to stop him, and probably I think in the 4th. I think that, you know. Gray's just probably gonna, you know, be able to slow down his pace for the first 3 rounds, and the 4th he's gonna catch him somewhere. Yeah. It's gonna be an interesting fight. Make sure and tune in. Look for a special edition of Aftermath. It's gonna be kind of our inaugural edition of it. We're covering the Las Vegas MMA fights tonight here in Las Vegas. A great card, 19 fights. You've seen a lot of content from us lately on some of those upcoming battles. We're going to be doing an edition of Aftermath. We're going to talk about the fights, then we're going to plug and show some of the highlights and some of the interviews. So, you know, make sure and stay tuned and tune in next week for another edition of Up to Date MMA. And as always, for additional coverage and exclusive content, make sure and check us out at fightlifemedia.com.